The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. The Radical. Fundamental. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday night. Everybody's doing well. The day where the President of the United States is impeached for the second time. Never happened before. Hopefully never happen again. But what is it, 8 days before he's out of office anyway, he's been impeached. Can't say he doesn't deserve it. 10 Republicans joined in with Democrats to do it. One has to question what the other 100 and whatever, 60, 70, 80 Republicans were thinking, not voting for impeachment. But anyway, not a lot of vote, not a lot. Yaron sounds like a robot? Do I? Really? There's an issue with sound? Yaron sounds like a robot? Do I? Whoops. All right, I don't know. Echo? You guys hear an echo? Sounds weird. Still sounds weird. 1, 2, 3. I don't know. Echo. Ha. Interesting. What do we do? Let's see. That better? 1, 2, 3. Is that better? All right. Yes, tin can. Sounds like a tin can. It's off, but no issue here. It's okay here. It's a tin. I don't want to be a tin. Did it get better? One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. Still can't hear me well. I'm not sure what you mean by well. That is weird. All right. Well, why is the chat down here instead of beside Yaron? What does that mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Getting better. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So I apologize for the sound. Not sure we could do a big restart, but I don't think it's worth it. Robert Yaron sounds cool. What happened here? Anyway, let's get on with it because, again, that worked. Whatever I did worked, somebody said. All right. Sounding like Lex Friedman programmed you. That's right. I sound like an intelligent design machine. Anyway, intro music played twice. Well, that was an echo because something wasn't muted. Okay, hopefully this sounds good. We have impeachment, a lot of stories going on, a lot of news, but I decided not to talk about Trump today. I mean, I'm looking forward to the day where I never have to talk about Trump ever again. I'm not sure that will ever happen, but that would be nice. So I want to tell you the story of Jack Ma today. Titled the show, "Where is Jack Ma?" And somebody early on said, "Wait a minute, who is Jack Ma? You can't talk about where is Jack Ma without telling us who is Jack Ma." So I will tell you who is Jack Ma, and that'll lead us into a discussion of big tech. It'll lead us into a discussion of China and the situation in China, and it'll lead us into a discussion of all kinds of stuff, and maybe even Trump's name will come up. Even though I'll try not to use Trump as an example. But God, you think with everything connected, with all the stuff I have connected here, all the preamp and soundboard and everything, the sound would be right. Unless I pressed a button accidentally. Is that better? I don't know. Anyway, it's like there are two mics open. That's interesting. Okay, one second. Let me just check something. Good call. Maybe there's no. It's only one mic. It's only one mic. All right, that's not it. All right. Still tinny and weak. I can be stronger. I can increase the volume. Is that better? The volume at least should be better here. But all right, I just increased the volume. So hopefully that has improved the situation. I can increase the volume even more. All right, volume-wise, that should be still echoing. Echoing. That's me. All right. Worse than ever now. Oh, it's worse. Okay. All right, let's try this. How about that? Is it better now? All right, now you get too much volume. All right. That better? I'm trying not to hood my listeners' ears. I'm trying not to. All right, anyway, this is what it's going to be. Somebody says, no, it's not better. But it was too loud before, so I reduced the people who say better, no better. You guys can't make up your mind, right? There's another better. We could take a vote. How about we vote? We do a vote. We're a democracy, right? Better, I think. Loud, but I can't turn you down. My ears, it's fine for me. It's okay now. Sounds good to me. Put on headphones so you can get feedback and fix it yourself. I don't get the feedback in my phones. I don't hear myself on the phones. I've got it set up so I don't hear that. I hear the music. I hear you if you call me, but I don't hear myself, which is the way I like it. Anyway, let's see if I don't hear an echo. I don't hear anything on my phone, so nothing I can fix. I will work on it before next show, but I didn't change any of the settings from yesterday. The clip on the channel your mic is in. Somebody just spilled his absolutely no echo sound is perfect here. Oh, you guys are just confusing me, man. Having a live audience sucks. Okay, I love you guys, but it does. I turned the knob, the main knob. I turned the main knob. Where am I supposed to turn the main knob to? Turn the main knob, not the fader. I turned the main knob. Anyway, we'll keep going. So we're talking about China. We're talking about Jack Ma. So Jack Ma was in, as of October, not anymore, but was in October, the richest man. I don't have two mics on. Clearly, there's only one mic being fed into whatever it is that you are receiving. There's no second mic anywhere. Let me just see on my computer how that is set up. Sound set up there. Yeah, no second mic. One mic. Turn it up to 11. That's only for certain types of music. You turn it up to 11. The PC mic is not turned on. It's turned off. You see, I'm getting a million people with different advice. The mic on the webcam is not connected to anything because Restream is not connected to that mic. YouTube is muted. No. OBS only has one mic input, and that is this mic right over here. Pour milk over the computer. That'll do it. Dave said he takes it personally when smart people who should know better belittle and dismiss subjectivism. What is the remedy to that? Don't take it personally. It's not your fault. It's their fault. You know, somebody else's errors, somebody else's irrationality, somebody else's mistakes, somebody else's evasions are not your responsibility. You can't take it personally. It's not a reflection on you. So you need to just let go of it. Some people will not get it. And some people refuse to get it. And that is not a reflection on you or on the ideas. It's a reflection on them. And you have to have, in a sense, the self-esteem, the self-confidence to say, it's not me. It's them. It's not the ideas. The ideas are true. It's them. And it's sad that they don't get it. It's sad that they are confused. But it is what it is. And it's not a reflection on you. Ian says you need to do a show on why vaccinations are going so slow in the U.S. versus Israel. Well, I mean, it's the vaccinations are going so slow in the U.S. because the U.S. has no planning. It has no It has no. It's central planned. The government is doing it, but the government has no plan. The government is basically distributed. The government is basically leaving it up to everybody. The government is basically divided. You've got a federal government who doesn't plan and doesn't know how to plan and is being awful. And then you've got state governments who don't have a clue how to do this. And the solution is not the Israel model. The solution is the free market model. The solution is to bring back free markets. The solution is to embrace the marketplace as, you know, the solution of, you know, we've seen that when you leave the marketplace free, when you leave the marketplace alone, what you get is vaccine development in record time. When you try to centrally plan not the creation of the vaccine, but the distribution, you get governments. All right. Let's talk about Jack Ma. So Jack Ma was, as of October, the richest man in China. He is the man behind Alibaba Group. Alibaba is one of the largest companies in the world. It is a technology giant. It is the equivalent of Amazon, but bigger. Does more things than Amazon. Ma, just to give you a quick rundown on his life, Jack Ma was born in 1964 in Huangzhou, China, which is a city, beautiful city, by the way, beautiful city. Just southwest of Shanghai. That's the headquarters today of Alibaba. It's you know, skyscrapers, the buildings, the architecture, just amazing. There's also this massive lake in the middle of the city. You can go on boats on the lake. There are all these pathways. Just, I spoke at a university in Huangzhou, and it just beautiful. Just truly a beautiful city. And I think a lot of that is a consequence of the fact that Alibaba is there, and there's a lot of wealth there. But in 1964, so he was 14 when Deng Xiaoping took over and started opening up the Chinese economy. He's the kind of guy who's always worked, always hustled. He's a hustler. He's always found jobs here and there, done things here and there. He had a hard time getting into university because of the exams in China. I guess he flunked them several times. He couldn't get into Harvard Business School. Harvard Business School, he says, turned him down 20 times. But he was always dabbling. He was always starting companies. In the 90s, in the early 90s, he started a whole string of companies. And in 1994, he was introduced to the web, to the internet. And he actually visited the United States. And in the visit to the United States, they showed the web and how it works and you know, the early World Wide Web, you know, just 1994. It's hard to believe how far we've come from those days. And he did some searches on China, and there was no information on China, and there was nothing. There was no web in China. There was no websites on China. And he actually started the first website about China. He then went out to start a number of different kind of web-related businesses. And in October 1999, together with 17 friends, he started a business out of his apartment, out of his little apartment, that basically did business-to-business exchanges in China. So this is 1999. At the peak of the dot-com bubble in the United States, internet was basically non-existent or almost non-existent in China, very limited. He started a business-to-business online exchange with Alibaba, and he called it Alibaba. Since then, by the way, he raised money in October 99, and then in January 2000, he raised money from Goldman Sachs and from SoftBank, $25 million to build out this new internet platform. It became a huge success. You know, spun out of Alibaba, or not spun out, but expanded from business to business. They created a business to consumer platform, which is basically eBay in China, called Taobao. Taobao is eBay. They started a finance company called Alipay, which is basically China's PayPal. They started a business that basically became a business to consumer, and a consumer to consumer is Baotao, which is the eBay, and then a business to consumer, which is basically Amazon. So in terms of online commerce, Alibaba is the largest online commerce platform in the world. It's bigger than Amazon. It's bigger than eBay. And it's global. They have investments in companies all over the world. And Jack Ma basically started in his garage. Well, not garage, in his apartment. That's that's the origins of his wealth. In addition, he started a company called what was the company called? Well, Ant. A-N-T, Ant. And Ant is a company that does lending in China. It does lending particularly to the middle class and the poor. It does lending to people who do not have collateral. A lot of it can be categorized as microloans, small loans, uncollateralized. It aggregates capital from a variety of different sources, private entrepreneurs, others, and has been incredibly successful. And incredibly successful not only in making money for itself, but of course in financing loans for small businesses, for medium-sized businesses in China, for small entrepreneurs, for startups, and has done phenomenally well. Anyway, Ant was scheduled to be IPO'd in November. Initial public offering, become a public company. Alibaba actually went public in... what year did Alibaba go public? In 20... Yeah, I'm not sure. But it's been public for a long time and is one of the largest companies in the world. So Ant was going to go public in November of last year. Let me just see if I can find Alibaba going public. Yeah, in September 2014, Alibaba raised $25 billion in initial public offering, which gave it a, its stock has done phenomenally well since then. It has changed the way, Chinese consumers, the way Chinese business do business and consumers buy stuff. So it very advanced. The PayPal feature is completely integrated into the shopping mechanism. And it's a massive company. Anyway, in November, this new company, Ant, was going to go public. It was supposed to be massive, potentially the largest IPO, initial public offering, in history. It was going to list on the Shanghai and Hong Kong stock exchanges. not in New York, which for the largest IPO is quite shocking, and was going to be this amazing event and probably make Jack Ma one of the probably top 10 richest people in the world. A few days before the IPO, Jack Ma gave a speech where a number of officials from the government were present, including representatives from the Bank of China and representatives from the kind of regulatory agencies, primarily regulatory agencies involved in financial institutions. In the speech, Jack Ma goes on to criticize banking financial regulation in China, claiming that it is primitive, accusing banks in China, almost all state-run, state-owned enterprises, as being run like pawn shops and being super conservative. And of course, these banks are backed by the government, supported by the government, kept afloat by the government. And it was one of those speeches that in China was very, very critical of the government, and where in China you got to be careful with. Now, Jack Ma has been critical of the government in the past. There's speculation that he joined the Communist Party in order to try to appease them, right? I mean, to be successful in China, you have to join the party, even though joining the party is meaningless other than to give them the sanction. But what's interesting is the day after the speech, Ma and the chief executives of Ant Group were invited to the regulatory agencies. They were accused of running their business in an irregular and overly risky way. Of course, these are the same regulatory agencies that approved the Ant IPO, that approved that it would go public, that had no problem with the business until Jack Ma threatened and criticized the government. And so he appeared in front of the regulators in Beijing. And what's interesting is that since then, nobody's seen Jack Ma. At least nobody publicly has seen Jack Ma. Jack Ma has disappeared. Nobody knows if he's been arrested and he's in some cell in some dungeon somewhere. Nobody knows if he's laying low in a home somewhere. But all his public appearances were canceled. He was supposed to host he does one of these game shows in Africa where entrepreneurs present business plans, and he funds the business that wins. His name disappeared from that show. He did not make it to the show. Somebody else filled in for him. Basically, he's gone for 2 months now. He's just disappeared. In the meantime, regulators in China canceled the IPO of Ant. They are now talking about the fact that Ant has to follow all these regulations that are going to destroy its business model. In addition, Alibaba Group is now being accused of violation of, drum roll please, antitrust laws. So antitrust laws are being used against Alibaba Group in order to try to kill Alibaba. It's unlikely they killed him. He's probably there. He'll probably show up in 6 months, and who knows exactly what's going to happen. But he has disappeared. One of the great entrepreneurs of the last 50 years, one of the people responsible for the great increase in standard of living, quality of life in China, one of the people who have brought China out of the dark ages of communism and brought them into the world of technology and into the world of the internet, and provided the Chinese people with the ability to connect with the internet, is just gone. This is not unusual in China. Other billionaires have disappeared before, always after criticizing the government, always after getting in trouble with the Communist Central Party. Often, They are later accused of fraud and fined and maybe jailed or whatever. Sometimes they just show up again, but now they're quiet and behave nicer and so on. By the way, about 2-3 years ago, Jack Ma did something very unusual for Chinese. He retired from Alibaba and devoted himself to philanthropy. Now, philanthropy is not common in China. Philanthropy is quite unusual in China. Jack Ma became the first high-visibility CEO, high-visibility billionaire to start doing extensive charity in China, in Africa, in Latin America, but most of it in China. So an interesting guy, a critic of the CCP, an advocate generally for free markets, confused, but, overall, given his productive nature, I would say a good guy. And it's kind of sad to see him just gone. The media around the world, people like the Financial Times, The Economist, the Wall Street Journal, have all run articles about where is Jack Ma? And nobody knows. Hopefully, he's alive and well, hiding out in some luxury condo or some beautiful house somewhere in the world. Hopefully, he is unscathed. Hopefully, he comes out of this fine. But who knows? Who knows? What I find striking about all this is, one is the turn that China is making. The turn that China is making away from freedom and free markets. Jack Ma developed this business in an era where there was much more freedom. There was much more liberty for entrepreneurs, for businessmen, for businesses to create wealth, to build businesses, and to express themselves. He grew up in a China that was moving systematically and steadily towards greater freedom, towards greater economic freedom, certainly, towards an embrace of a market system. I remember in 2008 when the Las Vegas entrepreneur Steve Wynn went on national television and said, it's less regulated in China now than the United States. The United States is so regulated. This is in 2008, 9, 10. The United States is so regulated. It's easier to do business in China. Well, that China is changing, becoming more regulated, more controlled, greater authoritarianism, greater involvement in the government in every aspect of the life. And it's sad. It's unbelievably sad to see the steady, systematic decline of freedom and liberty in China. There are other Jack Ma's in China. Just like the United States, China has a number of companies that are big tech. The richest man in China right now is the CEO of Tencent, which is another of the Chinese big tech companies. These companies are developed in a relatively speaking free market. They are a result of entrepreneurial activity. They are companies to be celebrated and admired. But this new environment in China is going to destroy all that. And it's going to be interesting to see how wealth is going to be destroyed in China over the next few decades, how economic growth is going to be stilted in China over the next few decades. When you stop speech, when you don't allow people to communicate, when you don't allow people to think for themselves and act for themselves, economic growth suffers. Economic growth cannot sustain itself under conditions of lack of freedom. And the Chinese, I guess, have to learn this over again. Now, it's still true that sections of the Chinese economy are relatively free, but it's heading in the wrong direction, and therefore, without any question, the Chinese economy is heading in the wrong direction. Now, the other thing that this kind of reminds me is the attitude we have in the United States towards big tech. If Jack Ma was an American, maybe he wouldn't disappear. But, take Jeff Bezos. He's got leftists building guillotines outside his home. And he's got the President of the United States condemning him and threatening him with antitrust and with all kind of other regulatory legislation. It's truly stunning, I've said this before, that instead of China becoming more like the United States is in a phase right now where we are becoming more like China. Our attitude towards big tech is straight out of the book in China. Our attitude towards successful entrepreneurs sounds like the Chinese attitude. Everything today goes through Congress. If you listen to Ted Cruz or to Bernie Sanders or to AOC, you would think that technology in Silicon Valley were the devil. And that Silicon Valley entrepreneurs should disappear, all of them, just like they do in China. So it saddens me that I think the greatest benefactors of mankind over the last 50 years, the entrepreneurs in the realm of technology, whether in the US or elsewhere in the world, are today across the board, from China to Europe to the United States, viewed as villains. These are people who've opened up the world to all of us. Think of what massive benefits all of us get from being able to be connected to the rest of the world, to be connected to the knowledge base of humanity, to be connected right now by video, anywhere in the world. We, who claim to value freedom, claim to value liberty, claim, more importantly, to value the human mind, should be the defenders of the Jack Ma's all the way to the Bill Gateses, the Jeff Bezos, the entrepreneurs, Silicon Valley, of Austin, Texas, of Boston, of anywhere, who have built, changed the world. Seattle, I forgot Seattle. Changed the world and provided us with immense values. Yet instead, what dominates our life is not the values that these entrepreneurs have created for us. What dominates our lives is politics, 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 politics. The sickening sound of politics. We are heading down the path of China. And to the extent that we head down the path of China, of denouncing entrepreneurs, of denouncing our big tech companies, of stifling entrepreneurship, stifling innovation, and the world is going to end up with low economic growth, low standard of living, a slowdown in everything that we take for granted today. People, particularly with Trump, people have been going after for the last 4 or 5 years the idea of globalization. But think about, globalization is stunningly amazing and has the potential and has already to make our lives dramatically better. The idea that the world today is connected through the internet, that information can be shared throughout the world, that even in China, using a VPN, you can access all the information available in the world. The idea that knowledge thus is being shared, that we are thus connected, is an unbelievable value. It is that connectedness of information, that connectedness of knowledge, that is the primary driver of economic growth today. Whatever economic growth we have on a global scale is driven by the fact that anybody, anywhere in the world can access knowledge, build on that knowledge, create from that knowledge, and expand the knowledge base for everybody else. It is the opportunity to innovate and the success be magnified by the fact that everybody knows of your success and can share in the knowledge that that success constitutes. Globalization of knowledge more than anything else. Globalization of talent, globalization of production is one of the great achievements of mankind. Indeed, one of the great achievements of Rome was the building of roads so we could trade across continents. Today, we have trade on a far greater scale than anything Rome could imagine. And the trade can be done electronically. The trade can be done without ships and airplanes and people moving around. The trade can be done online. And until we start appreciating that, we risk destroying the engine of growth. Now, if you want to associate globalization with the Great Reset, that makes you dumb. It makes you the enemy of progress, the enemy of human life. Because the Great Reset is not about globalization. Globalization is about global trade, trade in goods, trade in information, trade in capital. One world government has nothing to do with globalization. Anti-carbon and anti-fossil fuel has nothing to do with globalization. And if you associate the two with that, as Donald Trump has done, and as Trumpism has done, then you destroy the engine of economic growth in the United States and the rest of the world. Trade and globalization are true modern marvels. The internet is a true modern marvel. And one of the great damages that the political movement that has dominated America over the last 4 years, and thank God it's been relegated to the minority now, is the damage that has been done to the perception of the value of trade, of the value of globalization, of the value of having 9 billion people around the country, around the world, or 8 billion, whatever the number is, 8 billion people around the world, thinking and producing and creating. The world is not a zero-sum game. The world is not achieve. Other people don't achieve at your loss. The world is a win-win. When 8 billion people are better off, so are you. When 8 billion people produce, you are richer. When 8 billion people have new ideas, you are richer. So, when something bad happens in China, when China becomes less free, when entrepreneurs disappear in China, it's not good news for America. It's not good news for us. It's not good news for progress and achievement and wealth creation. And when you start seeing the same attitudes in America as you see in China towards the productive, towards those who are creating the modern world, then don't look to the World Economic Forum for where your problems are. Look for Washington, D.C. to where the problems are. Look inside America to where the problems are. It's not the Great Reset that will destroy America. It is Americans who will destroy America. It is our own ideas, left and right, who are going to destroy this country. All right, let's see. Well, we'll stop there. Super chat questions. Happy to do super chat questions. Don't confuse globalization with globalism. Globalism is an anti-concept. There is no such thing as globalism. Globalism is a mixture of globalization, which is free trade, free movement of capital, free movement of people, with one world government. But nobody who is actually an advocate of real globalization, of capitalism, believes in one world government. One world government is a bogeyman. It's a bogeyman. Globalism is not a concept. It's an anti-concept. And every time you do it, you undermine your own thinking. Anytime you use it, you undermine your own thinking. And you undermine the case for liberty. Because you undermine the case for free trade. You undermine the case for globalization. You undermine the case for freedom. But there is no such thing as globalism. It doesn't exist. There's one world government, and I don't know anybody, or I know very few people who are not against one world government. There are very few people who believe in one world government. And it's just, that's not the issue on the table. Even the Great Reset is not primarily about one world government. It's about one set of policies that all governments, independent governments, should adopt. According to those who advocate for the Great Reset, which is a disaster. And I did 4 shows on the Great Reset, if you're interested. Let's see. And somebody's saying I'm for federation. You know, before you ever started having thoughts in your mind, I was saying that the UN should be dismantled, shipped off to Caracas, Venezuela. So the idea that I'm for federation with China in it is just childish and stupid and wrong and a lie. But this is the mentality that Trump is inculcated in his followers. Just lie. Just make shit up. It doesn't matter. Just make it up. Just say it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's true or false. You get your own upset. That's all you're trying to do. You don't really care about truth. You're just trying to troll. You're just saying stuff to achieve a particular effect. But what I don't see among people today, I don't see, is people who seek truth. People actually want to know what the truth is, actually what is going on in the world. All right, let's see. We've got a bunch of questions. Michael asks, okay, do you think some, if not a majority of leftist intellectuals are sympathetic to free markets? They don't want them destroyed entirely, or is that just a facade? Emotionally, they want the system of freedom completely wiped out. Well, it depends on who you mean. I mean, I don't know who a majority of leftist intellectuals. Certainly, the intellectuals like, I don't know, the people who, the Black Lives Matter type of intellectuals, the black, the white guilt, white fragility, whatever it's called, kind of intellectuals. Those intellectuals hate capitalism. They despise capitalism. They want the effects of capitalism. I've read it, when you read their books, they want the innovation. They want the prosperity. They want the wealth. Indeed, Karl Marx wanted all that. But what they don't want is the system that makes it possible. What they don't want is the profit motive. What they don't want is the egoism necessary to achieve the profit motive. What they don't want is to reward the people who produce more than the people who don't produce. What they don't want, right, is capitalism. Now, that's kind of the far left. They hate capitalism. They despise capitalism. They want capitalism to be destroyed. Indeed, it's not that they advocate for socialism because they love socialism. They don't. They are mainly haters. They are mainly just want to see the destruction of capitalism, not anything put in its place necessarily, because they have no clue what they want in its place. Now, some of these socialists talk about we want to have companies run by employees, but that is a fantasy, a delusional fantasy, because every time it's tried, it fails, and it can't compete. They know it's going to be less productive. But they have this, they lie to themselves. And they're delusional about the potential for these things to continue to create iPhones, even though you've taken away the leadership structure, the innovation, the foresight, and the profit motive from these companies. Now, there are other leftists, and this is why I hate lumping people, leftist intellectuals. Well, who? Right? There are other leftists, like, let's say, Steven Pinker, who think that capitalism is pretty good. That it needs to be regulated, it needs to be controlled, it needs to be modified. But they recognize, they're rational enough to understand that private property is important. The far left hates private property. They understand that incentives matter. Now, they don't get it, right? If they got it, then they wouldn't be left of center. They wouldn't want to regulate capitalism. But they're far, far better in terms of their views of capitalism. And their motivation is not hate, as it is with the egalitarians, with the far left. They hate, and their motivation is hate. Well, Steven Pinker, I don't think is motivated by hate. He might be ignorant. He might be even evasive. But he's not a nihilist. He's not hateful. He's not wants to destroy for the sake of destruction. Do you think Newsom and Cuomo and that see you next Tuesday from Michigan are going to get reelected? I think the silent majority and what's left of American sense of life are going to kick in. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Cuomo will get reelected. I think if he is the only Democrat on the ticket, I find it hard to believe that New York will vote for a Republican governor. I think the same thing with Newsom. I mean, maybe somebody will challenge Newsom within the Democratic Party, and or maybe they'll find like a Republican who's really a Democrat, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a real rhino, right? You know, a Republican name only. But I mean, that's not. I mean, he ran as a free market guy and then completely sold out to the left once he got into power, because he realized that even though he won, he couldn't actually do anything as a free market guy because there was no support for it. So I don't know if Newsom and Cuomo, I don't know if the American sense of life is alive or well. I mean, I'm hopeful because I actually view, as I've said many times, I view the defeat of Donald Trump in this last election as a real positive statement about the American public. And I view the fact that Republicans gained in the House and actually did pretty well in the Senate relative to expectations. And if they hadn't blown Georgia, they would have done great in the Senate. But they blew Georgia because of Trump, again, so Trump is really the problem. And that many of the far-left propositions got voted down, like in California. So maybe you're right. Maybe there is a silent majority that will kick in and that will drive some of these really bad authoritarian governors out of power. I certainly hope so. I'll believe it when I see it. It's just California and New York in particular are so entrenched Democratic that it's hard at this point to see how they would vote for a Republican. And the Republicans won't nominate a moderate, if you will, a non-Trumpist, I think, right now. So that's also going to be interesting. Where does the Republican Party go? Where does the Republican Party go? Does the Republican Party go in a direction of moving away from the poison that is Trump? Or does the Republican Party embrace Trumpism and let Trump dominate? And if they let Trump dominate, then they might find themselves in the wilderness politically for a long, long time. And if they don't let Trump, if they move away from Trump, they might find themselves in a political wilderness for a long, long time, because the voters, 75% of Republicans, still love Trump and what he stands for. Not just him, but what he stands for. In spite of the fact that that is the opposite of what a party that supposedly is supposed to reflect the principles of this country and the principles of the Founding Fathers about. Do you think there'd be political retribution in America against a billionaire for speaking loudly and intelligently for capitalism? No, I mean, there wasn't any retribution against John Allison when he did that. Quite the contrary, he gained a huge amount of respect. He's been, people have tried to get him to run for governor several times. He was on the Trump's short list for a number of cabinet positions, but John would not work for Trump under any circumstances. I think it gained him respect. I think if they do it right, like John Allison did, if they do it intelligently, if they present the ideas well, then absolutely. I don't think that it would be there would be retribution. I think on the contrary, there would be great admiration for somebody actually standing up for principle. The radical, the far left would hate him, but the far left is not in control of this country, not yet. Control of certain institutions in the country, but it's not in control of the country yet. And as long as they're not, there are opportunities for people to stand up and be counted and be respected. All right. Before I forget, we've got almost 200 people listening live, but less than 100 likes. So please like the show before you leave. It helps with the algorithm. You know the drill. A big part of how a show like this grows, how a show like this gets out there and expands and grows its audience, is by you sharing. I mean, if you don't share, truly the show can go nowhere. It's almost impossible to get traction without you pressing on that share button. There's no more important a measure of success than actually sharing content. Sharing content is how content grows, and how it gets out there, how it goes, even if it doesn't go viral, how it grows in influence. So if you like stuff that I say, if you like a short video, if you like one of these long, the rant yesterday, I thought was excellent. I enjoyed it. It was very long, but I thought it was really excellent. Share it. If you thought it was excellent, share it. Let people know. Unsafe Space has always known about my show. I know the host of Unsafe Space very well. He knows me very well. Carter Loren, who hosts Unsafe Space, has been friendly. We have been friendly for many, many years, close to 20 years. So it's not that Unfair Space, which is another podcast, doesn't know who I am. They might not. I'm not sure what his position is about the Iran Book Show. I don't know, but certainly we've been friendly over many, many years. Someone does edit my stuff, right? We've got hundreds and hundreds of short videos that are edited, where my stuff is edited out, and short videos are created. That's what you should be sharing. That's what you should be sharing. Okay, so please share. You find something you like, share. Unsafe Space. Yes, I know. Unsafe Space. That's a podcast, right? Let's see. What else? Support the show. You got a great opportunity to do it right now while you're here live. You can do it by using the Super Chat feature, asking questions. We've got plenty of time to answer your questions, so please do so. Use the Super Chat. You can put $10, as Capitalist Nick just did, Canadian dollars, or you could put $1,000. And I promise to answer the $1,000 question more thoroughly than the $10 one, and give it priority. But you can do anything in between. Of course, the best way to Carter Loren at least used to be an objectivist. So I don't know what a moderate libertarian is, but he used to be an objectivist. Out and out an objectivist. So what he is today, I don't know. I mean, I assume he still is an objectivist, but I don't know. You can ask him. But he certainly was one. Let me see. What was I saying? Oh, yes. You can also support the show monthly. That's a huge help. I'm looking for people who can afford to do $250 a month or $500 a month. You get a lot of one-on-one time with me when you do that, $100 a month. That is huge, and that really allows the show to take the next step if we can get significant more contributions on a monthly basis. You can do that on YourOnBookShow.com/support. You can do it on Patreon, and you can do it on Subscribestar. You can also do it on Locals, Dave Rubin's platform. All right. On with the questions. Answer this in a future show if you think about it. Top 5 musical pieces, paintings, operas, arias, sculpture. Thank you for introducing me to Ayn Rand and Ayn Rand. Wow, I'm so happy I did. All right, I'll do a top 5 of all those on a future show. I promise. Thoughts on Paula suing Amazon for antitrust? I mean, I think it's horrible that they sued them on antitrust. I don't believe in antitrust. I don't believe in antitrust laws. I guess when you're in a corner, you use whatever legal mechanisms you have. And antitrust is a legal mechanism that a lot of Silicon Valley companies have used over the years. So I understand why they used it. I'm saddened by the fact that they used it. I'd like to see antitrust put into the trash bin of history. Ayn Rand, I think, once said that should be the first law that is repealed. Antitrust laws, because it is so anti-American, anti-achievement, anti-success. So I think it's sad that Paula did that. I think the whole Paula, Amazon, Apple, Google situation it's interesting. I mean, I actually hope that it reaches trial because I'd like to get more of the evidence. Amazon, by the way, today replied to Paula. And again, I don't have any inside information. I haven't talked to Amy Peikoff, who's at Paula. I don't know. But Amazon's rebuttal to Paula is devastating. And Apple today basically seconded what Amazon wrote. And, according to Amazon, and this is just according to Amazon, I don't know what's actually going on. But according to Amazon, Paula had been warned in advance, direct quotes that clearly are violent, clearly incite violence, were sent to Amazon, to Paula, and Amazon requested that they be pulled down. Amazon did a real piece of work today in answering the Paula lawsuit. Now, again, all we're seeing is bits and pieces of the big picture. It's going to be really interesting to see the actual lawsuit and all the different filings and everything that goes on there. But, so it's hard to comment, but based on the Amazon filing, I don't see why Amazon was wrong to do what it did. I don't see why Amazon would be sued. But again, this is why we have a court of law to figure this out. Okay, we have another Paula question. I agree that private companies can remove anyone they please from their platform. But what we witnessed with Paula seems like a systemic silencing of dissent, which sets a dangerous precedent. Thoughts? I don't see it as a systemic silencing of dissent. There's plenty of dissent. There's no shortage of dissent on Twitter, on Facebook. I mean, I go on Facebook every day. I do dissenting pieces. I mean, all summer, I went after BLM as racist, as critical race theory as racist. I just said it again. It's on YouTube. Now, granted, I don't have hundreds of thousands, but I know a lot of people who do have hundreds of thousands and say this. The biggest critic of critical race theory is active on Twitter. He hasn't been banned, as far as I know. There's plenty of dissent in America. There's plenty of opportunities to dissent. There are plenty of platforms to dissent on. Now, there was a serious case of violence committed, an attempt to influence our electors in deciding, in finalizing the selection of presidents. This is a serious offense, what happened January 6th in Washington, D.C. If, and I'm saying just if, I don't know if this is true, if people on Paula use the platform to organize it, use the platform to facilitate it, and use the platform to express their violent views about certain people and certain groups, and Paula, when warned by its contractors, by people it had a contract with, to get rid of this, to do something about it, and it refused. If that is the story, and I don't know that is the story, then Apple and Google and Amazon are completely within reason to do that. And this is not a silencing of everybody. This is not systemic, other than these are the, what do you call it? They all have a contractual relationship with a company that they at least suspect did something that was bad. And they ostracize that company. They and not just bad, but that violates their contract with them. So they all walked away at the same time. But the fact that they all did it at the same time only suggests that they have very similar standards, and that those standards were at least perceived to have been violated. Right? I've never blamed the left actions on Trump. That is such BS. Again, this is Trump tactics. Lie, make stuff up, repeat it, and somehow it becomes true. Even though it backfired massively, isn't the fact that Jack Ma felt that he could make these comments and get away with it an indication that China's political culture is opening up? Well, I think Jack Ma made the strategic mistake of thinking that he was still living in China of 10 years ago when you probably could make these comments. The problem is that while the China of 10, 15 years ago was opening up, the China of today is not. And I'm not sure Jack made the right calculations. Now, he might have thought that it was a risk worth taking. He might be in the background fighting for increasing opening up of China, and this is one of the ways he's doing that. Hard to tell exactly what the motivation is. But the fact that it backfired on him suggests that Jack Ma is not living in the China that he thought he was living in. That he doesn't have the kind of influence he thought he had. And that Xi, and all indications are Xi got personally involved in stopping the IPO of Ant. That Xi is asserting his power, and that Xi wants to make clear that private entrepreneurs are not welcome to have their own opinions. That private entrepreneurs do not have influence in modern China. That he is an absolutist dictator. That he will penalize you if you criticize the Chinese Communist Party in any way. And he's been doing this systematically for the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, I think I've told you the story of last time I was in China. They tried to stop me from speaking. They sent thugs to the think tank that had invited me and is sponsoring my talk to block their office doors. They refused to let me speak at a university, so we had to give the talk at a hotel. They told the academics not to come to my talk. Some of them did anyway. So China's changing dramatically over the last 4 years. And this is going to hurt China. It's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt the world. And any freedom-loving person should be horrified by the dramatic shift in China towards authoritarianism. Before the election, you could make a weak case for Trump. Not me. After the election, Trump showed his true authoritarian roots and what a despicable liar he is. How do some objectivists still show support? I don't know. They're convinced that he's right. They're buying into it. And their hatred of the left is such that they have embraced the idea, which I think is wrong, that anything is worth doing in order to stop the left. But there are people out there who admire Trump, who love Trump. Now, by the way, I repeat, everything I've said about Trump for the last 5 years has been true. It's turned out right. I mean, I hate to say it, but I told you so, and I'll say it. I'll keep reminding you of that. Because you should be listening. You should be sharing the show. You should be liking it. Because what other show called Trump as well as I did? Called his impact on the Republican Party. His impact is the fact that he would lose and the Republicans would lose. I mean, remember, when Trump took office, not only did he have the Senate Republican, he had a Republican House. And now he's lost the Senate, the House, and the White House. Not me. I didn't do it. You can blame me all you want. But Trump lost for the Republican Party all 3 branches of government and has divided the Republican Party in such a way that they could be an opposition party, they could be a minority party for a long, long time. And at the same time, we're not freer. We're more divided. We're more at each other's throats. There's more violence. We're not safer. Violent crime is up during the Trump administration, not down. All right, we've got one last question unless you start asking questions. So this has been a show low on Super Chat questions. So please, if you want to ask me anything, if you want to comment on anything, if you want me to respond to anything, use the Super Chat and think of any dollar amount you put there as a value for value, as a trade, as you showing appreciation for what you get from the show. So hopefully we can get those dollar amounts up. What do you think of the saying, "This too shall pass"? It makes me think, yeah, and my life was passing too. It seems defeatist. I don't think, yeah, my life will pass too, but there's an element of defeatism in it. There's an element of determinism in it. It'll just pass. There's an element of passivity in it. Because it assumes you can't do anything about it. You're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to stand up. You can't change the world. It'll just pass. Which is deterministic and passive and defeatist and not good. The only time I say "this too shall pass," and I do sometimes say that, I say it to motivate. I remember when I was a child, I used to say it. When I'd get sick and I'd feel really, really, really bad, where there was I had every childhood disease possible in those days. There were no vaccinations. I just got all the childhood diseases. I'd have those diseases and you'd be lying in bed and you'd be sick and feeling miserable and horrible. And in that context, it's appropriate to say, "This too shall pass," because it will. And this will pass, and I'll feel better, and I'll feel fine, and everything will be good. Right? I still do that when I'm feeling, physically bad. When I'm got a bad flu or bad cough or whatever. I do think, a week, 2 weeks, this will go away, and I'll feel fine afterwards. So it only goes so deep is a sense in which that would apply, right? If it's something that is just set period, it'll go, it's fine, life will return to normal, then it's appropriate. But when it's about bigger things, when it's about things in your control, or it's about things that you can act on, or when it's not going to pass, then it's inappropriate. Triple C, say something about the movie. Remind me what Unthinkable was about, because I can't remember. Just the name is not triggering me. I guess I could look it up online. And see. Let's see. Unthinkable, directed by Gregory Jordan, Samuel L. Jackson. Oh, it's the kind of, yeah, it's kind of the what's his name? Shyamalan or whatever his name is, movie. I don't like movies like that because I don't like the mystical element in it, but it was very well made. It was very well made, and it was very exciting and surprising and with an interesting twist to it. So is that the right movie, or am I thinking of Unbreakable? Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong movie. American thriller directed by George Lucas, starring Samuel L. Jackson. Really? Actually, I don't know. Let me check back with you later because I don't remember the movie well enough to comment on it, if I saw it. All right, let's do this. I'm just copying down the Super Chat questions. We've got a flurry of them. Yeah, feel free to rush in with the Super Chat question, particularly if it's over $20. That'll be great. All right, so Showsbot does 21. We've got 200 SEK. SEK is what? I'm not sure what SEK is. All right. Any thoughts on Sheldon Adelson? Seemed like a tremendous businessman with some serious personal flaws. So Sheldon Adelson died yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Sheldon was one of the richest people in America, one of the richest people in the world, the owner of the largest or the most valuable gaming franchise in the world, Sands, which is the owner of the Venetian Hotel and the Venetian Conference Center. He was a kid, started out with nothing, seriously nothing. And he was a poor kid, shiny shoes, I think. I mean, really, he had nothing. Worked hard, worked himself up to becoming one of the richest people in the world. When he came to Vegas, bought the Sands Hotel, he was the first person to recognize Vegas as an opportunity for the conference business. Vegas used to be kind of a vacation spot, nightlife, not much to do during the day, and a little seedy. It had already started cleaning its act up before he started this. But his idea was this. People are coming to Vegas for the nightlife. They don't have anything to do with during the day. But if you really, there's a way to capitalize on what they on during the day. And the way to capitalize that is to turn it into a conference center, hosting large conferences. And then people attend the conference during the day, and then they go out at night. They go watch shows, they go to restaurants, they go to strip clubs. It's a lot of men show up at these conferences, more men than women typically. So the strip club business has prospered dramatically in Vegas. But he was the first one to really recognize this as an opportunity. He built this massive Sands Conference Center, which is now next to the Venetian and next to Venetian and the Palazzo hotels. The Venetian was also a luxury property. Every room was a suite, massive rooms. I stayed in the Venetian many, many, many times, and the Palazzo many times. And he created a whole experience within the Venetian. He built the Venetian canals. He built a shrunken model of St. Peter's Square. St. Peter? Anyway, the big square in Venice. And it really created an experience. And when Venetian was new, it was spectacular. It was spectacular. I mean, I still like to go over there. It's truly beautiful. So if you've never been to Vegas, you should go to Vegas. Vegas is something. Vegas is something. So he was a perfectionist. I've seen some documentaries about the building of the Venetian, about getting the color in the canals just right. Once you fill it with water and given the lighting, and he'd have them empty all the water out and repaint to get it just right. St. Mark's Square in Venice, thank you. Not St. Peter, St. Mark's. So he was a real perfectionist. I mean, he was a giant. He was a giant in terms of his business ability. He was a giant in terms of his personality. He was a massive donor to Republican causes. Massive donor to Israel. He was Jewish, and he gave a huge amount, very pro Israel. Gave a lot of money to Jewish but primarily to pro-Israel causes, and gave a lot of money. He was considered a kingmaker within the Republican Party. Gave a lot of money to Republicans. I don't think he ever really liked Trump. He supported Trump, but I don't think he ever really liked Trump. I never met him, but I got really close to him because I became quite friendly with his number two, the guy who was president of the Sands, number two in the organization, who also, so I've known that guy for many, many years, and we're very friendly. I always tried to get him to introduce me to Sheldon, and he'd always say, "You're never going to get money out of Sheldon," so I never did it. All right. So Unbreakable, Unthinkable is a movie about where Samuel Jackson torturing a terrorist POW who has information about a planned to bomb an American city. The movie basically tells you torture is immoral, but it works. So I don't think I've seen that movie. I would remember if I saw that movie. I don't think I've ever seen that. But I don't think torture is immoral in emergency situations. I don't think torture of terrorists is immoral if they have information that can save lives. I am all in with the, you remember the hero of 24, Jack something, I can't remember his family name. I'm all for Jack's attitude. You do what you have to do in times when there's a nuke bomb going to go off in Los Angeles. You do what you have to do. You shoot as many people in the knees as you have to in order to get the information about how to save the lives of millions of people. And I wrote about torture. I spoke about torture. And I got really, really, really bad press. And I got a lot of people, a lot of hate over my views over torture. But thank you, Emiliano. I'll look the movie up. How about Robert Reich? Can you give any opinion on him in reference to objectivism, view, and economy? Robert Reich is a intelligent, evasive, immoral, dishonest leftist. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is smart. He knows the economics. See, he knows what he's doing at some level is destructive. He knows the harm that his policies would do. Reich is I don't think he's a power luster. He doesn't strike me as a power luster, but he's an intellectual sleazeball. And intellectually dishonest. I remember he had a really, this amazing op-ed in the Wall Street Journal years ago. And the op-ed basically said, look, it was about COP. And he said, look, all the economic arguments about COP are absolutely right. There's a shortage of CEOs. They get paid market wages. CEO pay actually does relate to performance. All of that is true. But, he says, it's immoral. It's wrong. Reich takes his morality seriously. He takes his altruism seriously. And that's why he attacks Ayn Rand, by the way. Because he understands that the real enemy to his ideas are not Republicans. They're not conservatives, but Ayn Rand. Because he understands that the foundation of his ideas is morality, is altruism. Reich understands that the power of what he has to say does not lay in economics. He's wrong about economics. And he understands the damage he would do economically. The power of his ideas is in morality. So he said in this op-ed, it's unthinkable, even though he just explained all the economic rationale, it's unthinkable that a CEO would make X times what a low-grade employee make. And it's not because of the economics we must reduce pay of CEOs or limit pay of CEOs or tax pay of CEOs. I can't remember what the proposition was. It's because that's what justice demands. And you'll notice the attacks Ayn Rand. He's one of the few intellectuals, him and Krugman, on the left who attack Ayn Rand because they both understand that the real enemy, the one who challenges them not on the economics but on the ethics, the real enemy is Ayn Rand because she challenges them on the ethics and not the economics. How does Singapore have so government intervention but yet be most economically free nation? Which is more important, social economic freedom? I mean, I don't know what that means, right? But both are important. Both are important. You could argue that it depends how socially unfree you are. So I know people who live in Singapore, and they love living in Singapore because it's economically free. But they also, their social freedoms are not really limited. The Singapore government doesn't really care who you have sex with in your living room. The Singapore government doesn't really care what you say as long as you don't criticize them directly and do it in a public forum and you have an audience. The Singapore government allows you a certain enough freedom to make living there quite attractive, given that you also have economic freedom. But I think long term, just like any other place, the Singapore model is not sustainable. In the long run, ultimately, people who are economically free, people who attain a certain economic standing, a certain economic level, want to be socially and politically free as well. They don't want to be told how to live and what to say and what to do and whether to chew gum or not. So I think Singapore is not a sustainable model any more than any other model is. Now, the more freedom you have in any realm, the better off it is. Right? The better off it is. Singapore is kind of a dictatorship. They nominally have an election, but it's always the same party wins, and the party is controlled by one family. But they allow for some criticism, and they allow for some level of freedom of the press. So it's very, very mixed. But economically, it's very free. But even economically, it's not as free as you would think. For example, very, very few people in Singapore own their own homes. Almost everybody in Singapore is basically renting their apartment from the government. Almost all housing in Singapore is public housing. Is that sustainable as people get richer? Probably not. So there are a lot of areas, even economically, where Singapore is not free. So Singapore is not sustainable. It's not a model that's sustainable. A few weeks back, you did several great shows about morality and applying objectivism to one's life. Recently, watching Trump administration members resign, can one imagine them wrestling with ethics? What advice would you give them? Well, I think some of them were wrestling with ethics. I think many of them tolerated Trump, whether it's Chow, the transportation secretary, or Betsy DeVos, the education secretary. My guess is that they never really liked Trump, but they liked the position that they had, and they thought they were doing good. And then there was a tipping point where they thought their reputations would be sullied. They thought that sanctioning Trump was a bad idea morally. I think there was a tipping point in terms of their perspective on Trump. And at that point, they left. They resigned. I wish more of them had. I wish the whole cabinet had resigned. I mean, where's Mnuchin? I mean, Mnuchin should have resigned years ago. But why hasn't Mnuchin resigned? Where is Pompeo? I mean, I wish they'd all resigned. Alex says, he disagreed with my answer on Paula because there is some active stifling on Twitter. Yeah, there is some voices. Yeah, Alex Jones and people like that are stifled in Twitter. Okay, that's Twitter's right, and I don't see it as a big problem. And there was planning of this violence on Facebook, and look, Facebook is a behemoth. I mean, who's going to stop Facebook? Who's going to take Facebook out and say you can't use our platform to have your thing? Nobody. Facebook is too large. Paula is small. Paula relies on other people. Facebook doesn't rely on Apple, doesn't rely on Google, not in the same one-sided way. So Facebook cannot be stopped. I'm sure a lot of companies in Silicon Valley, and we know this, are very critical of Facebook's policies and Facebook allowing some of this stuff to be organized on Facebook. But there's not much they can do about it. Both Paula, they can't. So I'm not super concerned about Paula. I also think Paula will be back. I think it'll be back in terms of cloud services. There are plenty of other companies that compete with Amazon, including Oracle, which is run by a Donald Trump fan. Oracle has a cloud services company. There are other cloud services companies I've seen. I mean, I'm a little surprised that after what happened to Gab, what happened to Patreon, what happened to others, Paula wasn't better prepared for this. From a business perspective, you would think they would have done a risk assessment. What could shut us down? What could destroy us as a business? They should have diversified their cloud computing. They should have looked for a cloud computing company that would be more tolerant, if you will, of what they have on their platform. To me, this is a business failure of Paula more than anything else, because they knew this would happen. I mean, I remember having this conversation about Patreon. You remember even Sam Harris left Patreon. I remember having this conversation about Gab when nobody would allow Gab to be on their servers. This is not surprising. It's not new. It should have been anticipated, and there should have been some business planning around how to deal with it. And it's not like, from my understanding, Parler doesn't have money. I mean, they're backed by the Mercer family, which are billionaires. So I don't understand what happened there and why this was such a shock and a surprise, and why they didn't have an emergency plan of what are they going to do if Amazon kicks them out. Because it's not that crazy to think that Amazon's going to kick you out, given the kind of platform you are, given the attention you're attracting, given the kind of people that are coming in, given what's happening on Twitter and what Twitter's doing to people. So, I mean, I am generally concerned about the fact that there is an intolerance in Silicon Valley, a shutting down of opposing views. You know, we saw this with Facebook a few years ago, you know, one of my acquaintances left Facebook because they said voices that are not committed to leftist policies are ignored in Facebook. And, you know, this is intolerable. Facebook is creating this monolithic culture. We know this. And this is not good because it's dominated by the left. It's dominated by leftist ideology. It's dominated by people who want to impose their views on all of us. And that's not good. It's not good. It's happening on Facebook. It's not good on Twitter. It's not good in anywhere. And it's good that there are alternatives like Parler. It's just they need to be better managed in a sense so these things don't happen. But this is not, I'm not supportive of the behavior of big tech around the posts. I think they have every right to do it. They have the legal right to do it. But I don't think it makes sense long term, and I don't think it's good for the conversation. And I think it emboldens the left way too much. I'm all for banning Donald Trump for Twitter. I thought that was not a bad move, given what happened. But there are a lot of other people that I think are being bad for Twitter that shouldn't be. There's an inconsistency. I've said this over and over again. They need to be more objective. They need to be more systematic. They need to be more consistent about their policies. And that's true of all of the tech industry. But the fact that the tech industry is run and dominated by ideological leftists is bad for all of us. It's not good for us. In which Asian country is Ayn Rand most popular? Probably South Korea and China. That would be my guess. She's quite popular in China among the new middle class and the new wealthy, the new entrepreneurs. What's your take on Peter Zeihan's thesis that globalization is coming to an end and that the United States will withdraw from the world over the next few decades? I think it's possible. I think it's tragic. I think it's a disaster for the U.S. and for the world. But I think it's quite possible. I think both the left and the right seem to agree on this. I think Donald Trump wanted that. I think that the left, Bernie Sanders' left, wants that. I think that the new Republican Party is anti-globalization. I think the Democratic Party is anti-globalization. I think there's a good chance that the United States will withdraw from the world, and I think our standard of living, quality of life, freedoms in this country will suffer greatly as a consequence, as will the rest of the world as well. Not exactly topical, but what's your thought on the UK government's COVID lockdown rhetoric, urging the public to protect the NHS, save lives? I think it says something about the fragility of the NHS as it stands. Well, I mean, look, you have to understand, in England, in the UK, the NHS is bigger than God. You can criticize God in the UK. You can make fun of God in the UK. You can make fun of Jesus in the UK. But the thing you cannot do in the UK is criticize the NHS. The NHS has become, in a perverse, bizarre way, has become the most important thing to the lives of the British. They will defend it to the end. And it's not worth defending. It should be scrapped, and they should start over. Primarily, they should start with private health care. It's a disaster. It kills people every day. But the NHS is bigger than the Queen, absolutely. And it doesn't surprise me that what's being asked today is to save the golden calf that is the NHS, to save God that is the NHS. And how do we save it? By sacrificing. Doesn't matter how many people die. Doesn't matter how many people's businesses are destroyed. It doesn't matter how many people are out of jobs. It doesn't matter how many people become poor because of this. We must save the NHS. No, the NHS needs to be restructured from the ground up as a private institution, broken up. But that won't happen, not in the UK as it is today. I think the whole lockdowns in the UK have been awful, terrible, violation of rights, disasters. You haven't helped. Cases are through the roof anyway. It's not surprising that the NHS can't cope because it's a government centrally planned bureaucracy that doesn't have the flexibility to expand hospital beds, shrink hospital beds, shift hospital beds from one area to another. This is how government responds to crises, the way the NHS has responded, versus in the United States where hospitals have emergency plans, expand hospital beds. And while the United States has been terrible in every aspect in dealing with COVID, I actually think the NHS has done a worse job. All right, final two questions it looks like. As my family gets more political, they become more miserable. Everyone around me is unhappy. I'm struggling to find a job I want to stick with, but I want to get out of this toxic environment. Advice: stop talking politics. Avoid it. Ignore it. Pretend it doesn't exist. Focus on getting a great job. Focus on having fun with your family. Tell them to shut up if they bring up politics. Tell them you don't want to ever talk about politics again. Find a museum and go to a museum once a month. Sign up, I guess you can't go to concerts, but discover some great music that you love and get some headphones and put them on your head and ignore your family and just listen to the music. Go online, go to Netflix and watch some great movies that have nothing to do with leftist or rightist or politics. Go online and explore art, sculpture, painting. Take a course on art appreciation. There's a million things that you can do. A million things that you can do not to have to deal with politics day in, day out. Politics that you have no impact on, that you can't change. Ignore it for now. Don't be miserable because of politics. Read a book. Good one, Wanda Freeman. Read a book. Read a novel. Immerse yourself in a different universe. Not as an escape, not as an evasion, but as a recognition of something much better than what we have today is possible. Not politically again, but read books about heroes, novels about great heroes. Read Hugo, and don't accuse him of being a leftist. Focus in on the heroism of his characters. That is such a bizarre comment. If government print money to pass to consumers to spend, that is damaging the economy and the currency in the long run. If money is printed for investment purposes only, can the benefit of the investing outweigh the cost of the printing? This is a big topic, a topic that I intend to cover over the weekend. I'll talk about stimulus and about printing money and effects. Printing money is always harmful. It's just a question of how harmful it is. But there's no question that printing money for the sake of consumption is potentially directly inflationary. In one way or the other, it's directly inflationary. And whether it shows up in actual prices or not, it does, but whether prices go up or they just don't go down is a different question. But it's definitely inflationary. One of the arguments of the MMT crowd, the modern monetary theory, is if you print money and invest it, then it's not inflationary because you're creating jobs and therefore you're creating goods And therefore, you're increasing the goods at the same time as you're increasing the amount of money you're putting into the economy. And that's not completely wrong. There's an element of that that's true. The absurdity here is government investing. Government doesn't know how to invest. It doesn't invest in optimal projects because it doesn't have the profit motive or the pricing mechanism, to guide it towards those. Government usually is wasteful. It's not productive. It's not when it tries to do investment. It's really, really, really rare that a government can actually invest in something that has value, that actually produces more in terms of value than what was put into it. So it's still damaging because what you've done is you've taken money out of the private sector. You've taken money from private investors and you put the money into the hands of public investors, public in quotes, who don't know how to invest, who are not good at it. And if you just use printed money, then you're inflating because you're not going to invest well, and you're crowding out private capital. You're making investments in areas where private capital now won't because its cost of capital is higher than the government's. So no matter how you think of it, it's bad. Just giving people money to spend is just bad in a different way than giving money that's invested. But it's still both are terrible economically. Do you think it's worth your time to go on Business Finance Investing YouTube channel to get more exposure? For example, Andrew Henderson from the Nomad Capitalist, Ryan. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth my time. So if you can arrange them inviting me to go on those shows, I would love it. I think that would be incredibly valuable. Get new audience, get more people to come, get more people exposed to ideas. Absolutely good stuff. So I encourage everybody to promote me as a guest on other people's shows that you think are good. On any field, history, philosophy, finance, economics, Joe Rogan, general knowledge. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Don't forget to share it if you like it. And don't forget to support the show, YaronBrookShow.com/support, Patreon, Subscribestar, Locals. And I will see you on Saturday and Sunday. We'll do 2 shows. I want to do one show on economics, on some of this stuff that we just talked about, the impact of stimulus. And I want to do a show on something positive. So maybe on some art thing or something positive. Maybe I'll do the 5 best, 5 top, 5 favorites or something. So join me on the weekend for more shows. Again, don't forget to share. Share the short videos. Share segments that you like. Share anything that you like. Let's try to get new people to come and experience what you are experiencing every day. Let your friends know.